Today we're going to be talking about factoring the sum and difference of two cubes. So we've talked about a lot of factoring patterns this year, but we haven't talked about what happens when there's cubed values. So we're going to review some perfect cubes that you should be familiar with, and then we'll look at the factoring pattern. So I have a little chart up here saying, well, if n is 0, what would n cubed be? If n is 0 or 1, what would n cubed be? And et cetera, and we'll kind of go through these. So just so that we're familiar and we have these with us as we're doing our factoring pattern today, let's talk about 0 cubed. Well, 0 cubed is just 0. 1 cubed is 1. 2 cubed would be 8. 3 cubed would be 27. 4 cubed is 64. 5 cubed is 125. 6 cubed would be 216. 7 would be 343. 8 is 512, 9 is 729, and 10 cubed would be 1,000. You'll notice with the values that we're going to be working with today, we'll mostly be keeping it between 1 and 125. So let's talk about what the difference in sums of two cubes actually looks like. So when we talk about factoring the difference in sum of two cubes, we use an acronym that is SOAP. And this basically tells us what the signs of our factors are going to be. So the SOAP, SOAP, stands for same sign, opposite sign, always positive. And the actual factoring pattern looks something like this. And it's going to depend on whether there's a plus or a minus in the factor that you're given, of what the signs are that you're going to actually be using in your factors. So the sum of two cubes is when you end up having a perfect cube here plus a perfect cube here. The difference is when you have a perfect cube here minus a perfect cube here. And the signs happen from what sign you're originally given. So if I'm originally given a plus, the S means the same sign is going to go in the first factor. So if that's a plus, that's going to be a plus. The O comes from the opposite sign. So if you're given a plus, your opposite is going to be a minus, and that's going to be in the first place in your second factor. The always positive always goes with the last sign of your second factor. So same sign that you started with, opposite sign, and then this is always going to be positive no matter what. So with this difference of two cubes, if we're starting off with a minus, the same sign is going to go here. So minus, minus. The next sign is going to be opposite. So since we started with a minus, that's going to be a plus. And then again, that last sign is always going to be positive no matter what you start with. So let's look at an example. So let's factor x cubed minus 27. X cubed is a perfect cube. 27 is also a perfect cube, and we can go back and check that if we're not sure. In our list, there's 27, that's a perfect cube. So let's talk about how to use this factoring pattern. So this is going to be a difference of two cubes since we are starting off with a minus here. So I kind of wrote out some steps for you guys to help you get started on writing these factors. So to get the first factor, and we noticed that with the sum and difference of two cubes, there's always going to be two separate factors that we're going to end up getting in the end. To write the first factor, we want to write the cubed root of the first and the second term. And when I'm talking about the first and the second term, I'm talking about the ones that you're given, and separate them using the sign given in the problem. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write out, well, what is the cubed root of my first term of x cubed? Well, the cubed root of x cubed is just x. What is the cubed root of my second term? And my second term is just 27. I'm not worrying about that minus sign yet. Cubed root of 27 would be 3. So I'm going to set up my factors down here, and I'm just going to kind of go through the steps here. So I know I'm going to have a factor with 2 terms, and I know I'm going to have a factor with 3 terms. So my first factor is going to come from these two numbers that I just got when I took the cubed root. So the x is going to go here, the 3 is going to go here, and I'm going to separate them. Here's my same sign. Here's the S of the SOAP. So since I started with a minus here, there's going to be a minus here. My step 2 is always to write my signs in my second factor. So once I've taken care of this first part up here, I always go and write the signs in my second factor. So again, this is where the SOAP is coming in. So this is always the same sign of what you started with. Your next sign is going to be the opposite, and then your third sign is always going to be positive. So since I started off with a minus here, My opposite sign here is going to be a plus, and over here, this is also going to be a plus since it's always positive. My step 3 is to get the 3 terms of the second factor. So here I'm going to have a term here, I'm going to have a term here, and I'm going to have a term here. There's going to be things that I need to do with these 2 numbers that I originally got in my step 1. So I'm going to be using the x, I'm going to be using the 3. I'm not going back to that x cubed and then 27. So I'm going to square the first term. And what I mean about the first term is the one that we got when we took the cubed root of the x cubed. So my first term is x, and I'm going to square that. So x squared is just x squared. Second term is going to be to multiply the 2 terms. So these 2 terms that I got up here, I'm going to multiply them together. So x times 3 gives me 3x. And then my third term is going to be coming from the second term. And what I mean the second term is this term up here, this 3. So I'm going to square that. So 3 squared is 9. And these represent the 3 terms that I'm going to put over here in the second factor. So the first term is going to be x squared. Second term is going to be 3x. And the third term is going to be 9. So my final factored form is going to be x minus 3 times x squared plus 3x plus 9. And that's how we factor x cubed minus 27. So let's look at a couple of more examples. So let's look at a sum of 2 cubes now. So a sum, meaning there's going to be a plus in the middle, and this is a perfect cube here. X cubed is a perfect cube, and 8 is also a perfect cube. We wrote that out in our chart. So my first step is going to be to go ahead and take the cubed root of both of these terms. So I'll write out step 1 here. So the cubed root of x cubed, again, is just x. And then I'm going to take the cubed root of 8. Cubed root of 8 is 2. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my factors over here. So I'm going to have one factor with 2 terms, and I'm going to have one factor with 3 terms. And this x and the 2 make up this first factor. So I'm going to put my x over here, put my 2 here, and I'm going to put that SOAP up at the top. So this is my same sign. This is going to be my opposite sign. This is going to be my always positive sign. So since I started off with a plus here, my same sign here is going to be a plus. Step 2 is to go ahead and write out the signs of your second factor. So opposite is going to mean that this one's going to be a minus. Since I started off with a plus here, that's got to be the opposite. And then over here, we're in always positive, so that's going to be a plus. So step 3 is to figure out what this term, and this term are going to be. And again, this is coming from the terms that we got in step 1. So my first term is going to be my x squared. So that's going to be just x squared. My second term is going to be the 2 terms multiplied together. So x times 2 gives me 2x. My third term is going to be my second term, or that 2, and I'm going to go ahead and square it. So 2 squared gives me 4. So these 3 terms are going to be put over here in my factors. So x squared here, middle term is 2x, last term is 4. So my fully factored form would be, I'll just rewrite this here, x plus 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 4. And that is how we would factor x cubed plus 8. We'll go through one more example. This one's a little bit different because you'll notice that we've got some numbers in front of the x cubed now. That's okay. As long as this number here is a perfect cube, the x cubed is a perfect cube, and the 125 is a perfect cube, we can still apply the steps that we just took. It's just going to look a little bit different because we got some numbers here. So step 1 is still going to be to go ahead and take the cubed root of the first term and the second term. So I'm going to take the cubed root of 8x cubed. And that means that I'm basically going to be taking the cubed root of 8 and the cubed root of x cubed. Well, the cubed root of 8 is 2, and the cubed root of x cubed is just x. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for my second term as well. So cubed root of 125 is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my factors. So that means the 2x is going to be plopped right in the first term of my first factor. The 5 is going to be that second term of my first factor. And this is going to be where I want to set up the SOAP. So same, opposite, always positive. So since I'm starting my factor with a minus, that means that this sign is also going to be a minus. So step 2 is to go ahead and fill in my second signs. So if this is a minus, my opposite is going to be a plus. And again, always positive means that's going to be a plus. Step 3, I'm going to figure out what this term here is, what this term here is, and what this term here is. So my first term is going to be this whole thing squared. So now that I've got a number in front of it, I have to be careful. So it's going to be the quantity in parentheses of 2x squared, which means the 2 is going to be squared and the x is going to be squared. So that means that this is actually going to be 4x squared. My second term is going to be the two terms multiplied together. So 2x times 5 gives me 10x. My third term is going to be this last term squared. So 5 squared gives me 25. So that means that these are my 3 terms that are going to go in my second factor. So 4x squared here, a 10x here, and a 25 here. So my fully factored form is 2x minus 5 times 4x squared plus 10x plus 25. And that is my factored form of 8x cubed minus 125. Now it's your turn to try these 4 practice problems down at the bottom. Let us know if you have any questions.